A peaceful demonstration by migrants on the border between Mexico and the United States ended in violence on Sunday. The U.S. Border Patrol fired tear gas and, according to some reports, rubber bullets as some of the demonstrators got past Mexican security forces and approached the San Isidro crossing. Women and children were seen trying to escape from the gas. The outgoing Mexican government now says it will deport the migrants involved.
We were all together, and they started throwing tear gas, and they hit a journalist in the head.
We were walking and telling the US border officers not to throw tear gas at us because we weren't doing anything, and they started throwing bombs at us. All the police and cameramen were there.
We went near the border in a peaceful march, and the American officers got upset because we were too close to the border. The alarm went off, and they began throwing tear gas at us. A lot of people started to go down. A person got hit, and lots of kids fainted. So some people got rocks and threw it at the officers because many kids were fainting. We just took them to the doctor, and now we are coming back, and there's still tear gas. I don't know what happened just now.
The Mexican and U.S. authorities later said they had restored control and reopened the border crossing. Earlier, traffic in both directions had been suspended between San Diego and Tijuana. The shutdown came 3 days after President Donald Trump threatened to close the entire border with Mexico. These images show migrants running from tear gas at the border crossing between San Diego and Tijuana, Mexico. Among the migrants were families with young children. President Trump also said last week that he had authorized U.S. military to use lethal force against the migrants if necessary. Meanwhile, the U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, Christian Nelson, has supported the closure of the border due to the, quote, large number of migrants who wanted to enter the country. According to Nielsen, some migrants broke the security fence established on the Mexican side by security forces and threw projectiles. Other Central American migrants are in Tijuana waiting word on their asylum request. Many migrants want to cross despite the xenophobic and anti-immigrant policies in the United States. Donald Trump has tried to prevent them from entering the country and said that migrants who enter illegally from Mexico will not be allowed to apply for asylum. This, despite the fact that a judge temporarily suspended his order.
We are desperate, waiting for a positive response. We hope that the authorities can come to an agreement. It is not our intention to dismiss Mexican people. Our hope is to receive news for Christmas. Good news for my family back in Honduras.
And our correspondent Alina Duarte sent us this report earlier from Tijuana, Mexico.
We are here in the entrance of the bridge that gives access to the border access of San Isidro. Hundreds of migrants are here, but have been blocked by federal police. These migrants are trying to call attention to the U.S. authorities in order to be granted asylum, although these requests could take up to several months. This is the nearest point to the border these migrants will get to, with the road blockade by the Mexican federal police. During their march, they thanked the Mexican people as well as the city of Tijuana. They have also said that everything will remain peaceful if they are asked to stay in the city. People here are desperate because some have been here for more than 2 weeks, but have received no answer on their asylum requests.
So let's take a look at some numbers.
According to the governor of the state of Baja California, 6,000 migrants have reached the state. They say that nearly 4,000 Central American migrants are now in the city of Tijuana, with over 1,000 currently on their way to Tijuana. The total number of migrants from other contingents have reached nearly 8,500. The caravan departed 40 days ago, with the bulk of the caravan traveling more than 40,000 kilometers, particularly those from Honduras. It is important to point out that while migrants have received gestures of solidarity and hospitality on the one hand, they have been victims of racism, xenophobia, repression, and their human rights violations.
Sunday, November 25th, marked the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And in Quito, more than 10,000 people marched to raise awareness about the different forms of violence Ecuadorian women face on a daily basis. Women, people of all ages and backgrounds gathered to protest domestic violence, sexual abuse and harassment against women, and they demanded equal rights in the workplace.
We are here to resist because the government continues to be negligent with our lives, with our vulnerabilities. There are more than 1 million people missing. For the government, it doesn't matter that women are dying. The justice system does nothing, and sexual abuse keeps happening, which is just simply outrageous. This march is our way to say that we are fed up and we are a community fighting for our justice together, a feminist justice.
The Dominican Republic also marked the day for the elimination of violence against women. In the capital, Santo Domingo, women gathered to protest all kinds of violence. The commemorative date was first set to honor the 3 Maribel sisters who were murdered in the Dominican Republic by the Trujillo dictatorship. Women from all over the world take to the streets every 25th of November to raise awareness about violence. In Colombia, citizens have broken a Guinness World Record to support women's rights. More than 4,000 Colombians lit glow sticks in the country's capital, Bogota. This in support of women's rights and non-violence against women. The organizers said Colombia supports peace and the end of all kinds of violence in reference to the country's decades of armed conflict.
It is a very important recognition because we just signed for peace, and I think the whole world is looking at Colombia to see if we can achieve it. And this is a way of saying we Colombians are really against violence against women, and of course that we want peace.
I am more than just a man. I am also a partner and a son. I would not like to see any kind of violence towards the people that I love, towards women.
Women in Mexico also marched to demand justice in cases of femicide and an end to gender violence. Chanting slogans and carrying pink crosses across Mexico City, they condemned violence against women, some of them dressed as brides in reference to intimate partner violence. According to the UN, 7 women are killed every day in Mexico. And clashes erupted in Turkey during the national march opposing violence against women. Police reportedly fired tear gas at protesters after blocking their path with shields and ordering the crowds to disperse. The protesters responded by yelling, "We will not be silent and we are not afraid." The tense standoff lasted 2 hours. And dozens of couples danced in the Italian capital of Rome to mark the same day, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Female dancers were wearing red shoes, a worldwide symbol against the femicide, but also a symbol of female tango dancers. They say they want these shoes to be used only for dancing. They added that tango is a dance that symbolizes peace. We take a short break now, but we'll have more news after this.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives, Friday, only on Telesur. Welcome back.
over 900,000 Mexicans have participated in a public consultation promoted by President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador over the weekend. The second consultation asked citizens for their opinions on 10 different issues, among them the mine train and several social programs. Around 1,100 polling centers were set up across the country. The results will be made public this Monday. The Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez made an official 24-hour visit to Cuba, which ended on Saturday. He said that Spain will spare no effort to make its presence on the island live up to the friendship and respect it has for the Cuban people.
It's the most symbolic moment of Pedro Sanchez's visit to Cuba. He delivered a chair, once belonging to Cuban independence leader Antonio Maceo, to the Museum of the City of Havana, of temporary loan. It had been taken to Spain as a trophy of war.
This chair was a symbol of the War of Independence of Cuba, but today, thanks to this act, the chair also symbolizes the meeting and the link between countries linked by a common history. We have deep ties that unite us. This serves to highlight the union between two peoples who look to the future aware of what we were, but even more conscious of what we can become together.
The chair was made of a palm tree trunk, in which the Lone Star can be found, a symbol of Cuban independence along with the initials of Antonio Maceo. During the ceremony in which the piece was delivered, the city's historian Eusebio Leal highlighted the unwavering friendship between the peoples of Cuba and Spain, and assured that Cubans would be the guardians of the memory of General Maceo.
The events of history must be explained. They cannot be denied. They are irreversible. A royal palm chair that now holds the spirit of Cuba, and you bring it as an offering and as a deposit.
The Cuban foreign minister saw the visit of the head of the Spanish government as an opportunity to meet on the current relations between the two countries. During their stay, two memorandums of understanding were signed, one for bilateral dialogue and another for cooperation in the field of culture.
This is a visit that shows the will of both sides to develop the political dialogue, to strengthen our institutional ties, and to support the economic and commercial cooperation and the financial relations that we are currently developing.
Cuba has expressed gratitude to Spain for its support in the battle against the blockade, as well as for Spain's constructive role in the European Union for the development of links with the regional bloc. Pedro Sánchez is the first president of the Spanish government to visit Cuba in 32 years. His visit is already seen as historic. However, many hope that this trip marks a new stage in the political, economic, and trade relations between the two countries.
This November 25th has marked 2 years since the death of the revolutionary Cuban leader Fidel Castro. Commemorations took place across Cuba, attended by President Miguel Díaz-Canel. Latin American leaders will also spent the day remembering the leader of Cuba's revolution. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel attended a political cultural gala in which hundreds of youth remembered the leader of the Cuban Revolution. Under the slogan, Always Fidel, the commemoration took place at the University of Havana, where younger generations took part in a remembrance of the achievements of Fidel. Various artists also participated in the event that was full of music and dance. Ronaldo Hidalgo, member of the Communist Youth, expressed his thoughts 2 years after Fidel's passing.
Nothing will be able to extinguish his flame. Our enemies will have to live with the fact that they never defeated him. Fidel is necessary. His reports against imperialism, fighting for the humble of our country.
A group of congressmen in Brazil is promoting an alliance of social movements to support social rights. This as a way to counter threats made by the president-elect Jair Bolsonaro.
Brazilian congressmen and politicians have met with activists from the landless workers movement to offer their support against Jair Bolsonaro's threat to treat social movements as terrorists.
The upcoming government is threatening not only the social rights of Brazilian people that took so many years to achieve, but also it threats with political persecution, so left-wing parties and social movements are potential enemies. This solidarity is not only for parties and movements, but also to build a democratic front against the new policies of the upcoming government.
The front also wants authorities to face a reality marked by the country's housing deficit, estimated in 6 million houses, and the concentration of 45% of the land in just 1% of the landowners.
This will be a neo-fascist government, but ultra-liberal. This means it's going to sell all public companies. This won't benefit people nor will give solution to social problems. The opposite. We're going to have many social problems as we already have, in health, in education, and workers' rights that probably won't be solved by this government. And for that reason is that we need to continue to fight in the streets.
During the meeting, leftist leaders analyzed measures to resist the new situation by the elected government.
Bolsonaro's government works over society by symbols. Meanwhile, the classic fascism seeks for the eternal enemy. The neo-fascism seeks to choose some enemies. In Brazil's case, the internal enemies are those who are not part of what they call the Brazilian nation. So they promote bad image against the landless and homeless movements.
Bolsonaro will take office on January 1st, but social movements are already afraid congressmen will take their seats 1 month after.
Now to Jamaica, where the Vice-Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Sir Hilary Beckles, has reported that the University of Glasgow in the United Kingdom has agreed to pay the equivalent of £200 million in reparation payments. He says that the University of Glasgow has recognized that Jamaican slave owners had adopted the University of Glasgow as a university of choice and that £200 million of value was extracted from Jamaica and the Caribbean. He also said that the University of Glasgow and the University of the West Indies are currently drafting a memorandum of understanding, and the term reparatory justice is expected to be included.
Where we have established.
Chile is seeing one of the worst political crises of recent history following the murder of the young Mapuche Camilo Catrillanca. Protesters are demanding the resignation of the Interior Minister.
9 days after the assassination of the young Mapuche Camilo Catrillanca, Chilean President Sebastián Piñera decided to visit the region of the Araucanía. A popular uprising was already beginning, and his presence unleashed even more anger. Sabotage of deforestation machinery, blockades and protests in Temuco, Ericilla, Angol, and Victoria. This is how President Piñera arrived in Wallmapu. He held meetings with local authorities in the Amor por Chile pavilion, but when he attempted to give some sort of message of conciliation, he denied the existence of police repression against communities.
I want to repeat that there is not Comando Jungla. It is an invention or a name that was given by some of the media. What does exist is special forces that exist just as they do in all regions of Chile. And in the case of the Araucanía, they have held a training and received special technological funding.
But the experience in the territory is different. Leonardo Curinao, from the Coñomil Epuleo community, has had several face-to-face encounters. He was hit with a bat, but the police who had been trained in Colombia were equipped with weapons of war. Ada Huentecol, Brandon's mother, says that the police broke her son's hip. Indignant, she doesn't speak from the territory while the president carried out his extremely brief visit to the Araucanía.
The truth is love. This president is a clown. He looks us in the face like we are dumb. We are not dumb. These are the real terrorists who attack the Mapuche people on a daily basis.
The president's statements have only worked to spread uncertainty. For months, the media has referred to the Jungle Command, yet the government continues to deny its existence. Because of transparency laws, we were given the invested amount in police training used to repress the Mapuche people. And in other documents, the existence of that command is all but confirmed. However, President Piñera may have reason. From Colombia, we have confirmed that in order to actually graduate as a jungle command, one must pass 18 months of demanding training.
Several of your colleagues called me from Chile. I don't know what is the situation at this time with the comments. We have spent the last 30 years training and preparing police from different parts of the world.
The protests continue. They demand the resignations of the Interior Minister, Andres Chadwick, who is a cousin of the president, who, whether with the title of jungle or not, is the one who is in charge of the Chilean police. The same police which entered the Temucuicui community mid-year, where Camilo was assassinated.
Beyond the mistakes that have committed by a few policemen that will always go punished, the job of Chilean police, an institution for which I have the greatest recognition and gratitude, is to protect our lives.
Questions remain, and not only for the Mapuche who, like Camilo Catrillanca, were killed by bullets of the state, but also for all those who protest the militarization and criminalization by the Chilean state.
We'll take another short break now. Stay with us.
Telesur brings you special interviews with social and political personalities. Monday, from Washington. Tuesday, from Mexico. Wednesday, from Caracas. Thursday, from Quito. Friday, from Havana. Analysis about our continent's reality. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. 4 soldiers have been killed in Turkey when a military helicopter crashed in a residential area of Istanbul. The helicopter was on a training flight when it crashed. It is not yet known what caused the accident. Another Turkish soldier was wounded in the incident. Medical services are at the site and the defense minister is expected to visit. An investigation is underway. The United Arab Emirates has pardoned a British researcher who was sentenced to life in prison for spying. 31-year-old researcher was sentenced to life in prison last week. He has now been pardoned along with 700 other prisoners as part of a national day amnesty. According to an official statement, he will leave the country once formalities are completed. The leaders of the European Union have approved a historic deal for the United Kingdom on leaving the bloc. Now, all that is left for British Prime Minister Theresa May is to have the deal approved by the House of Commons in her parliament before the deadline for Brexit in March 2019.
It's a day where we are satisfied with the result, but it's a very sad day to see a country like the United Kingdom find its place separate from others. Leave the European Union, it's not a cause for champagne, nor applaud. It's a sad day.
At least 30 people have drowned in Uganda and more than 60 are feared dead after a party boat sank in Lake Victoria. Authorities say the boat carrying nearly 100 passengers sank, most likely due to overcrowding and bad weather. This is just the latest deadly incident on Africa's largest lake. In September 2018, hundreds of people died after a ferry sank on the Tanzanian side of the lake. The high number of fatalities is often due to a shortage of life jackets and the fact that many locals cannot swim. In Argentina, the Copa Libertadores final match between Boca and River was suspended again on Sunday following violence that took place on Saturday. The security operation headed by the Ministry of Security and the city of Buenos Aires was criticized as being a massive failure, less than a week before the city is set to host the G20 summit. Several players were injured by broken glass and stones thrown by fans. Police fired tear gas at fans, which also damaged a team bus. And according to CONMEBOL, the president of the organization decided to postpone the final match in order to preserve the fairness of the sport. A final date will be decided upon on Tuesday. The celebrated Italian filmmaker Bernardo Bertolucci has died in Rome. The director of The Last Tango in Paris and The Last Emperor passed away at the age of 77 after illness. The winner of 2 Oscars, Bertolucci is considered one of the greatest Italian film directors. And African musicians have gathered in Ghana's capital, Accra, to attend the All Africa Music Awards, Africa's equivalent of the Grammys. Nigeria's Davido won the trophy for Artist of the Year, while Betty G from Ethiopia took home Album of the Year. The Best African DJ went to Afrotronics, who has roots in Chad. The awards are a platform to showcase the African music industry.
I'm happy to be here because I feel that this is Africa coming together, you know, an event like this with such amount of superstars, so I'm very thrilled.
I'm sure it's gonna change many things for me or for other winners to spread African music in all over the world, because we all know that Africa is the mother of the groove, of the beat, of the sound.
And we've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at tellusenglish.net. Our viewers in Africa, we are on Starstat channel 461 in South Africa and 539 in Nigeria. And join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Tell Us Your English, I'm Soini Gray. Thank you for watching.
The ruling world order has always subjugated the masses. But who are the actors behind every move? What are their real interests? We analyze every move on